They are investing very heavily in a number of races, notably Representative Katie Porter's race in California. I think they spent the most in that race. I think it was $10 million. And what's really interesting is they are looking for these candidates who have expressed, a disapproval of crypto, don't want to work with crypto, and they are pouring millions of dollars into these negative ads. But it's really interesting because a lot of these ads say nothing about cryptocurrency.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by Congressional reporter Samantha-Jo Roth. SJ, we really can't talk about anything in Congress without talking about Jamaal Bowman, the congressman from New York. He had his primary this past week. What happened and what was the fallout?
Yeah, so obviously the congressman lost his seat. This is not a huge surprise. He was, generally a pretty vulnerable candidate after he made some anti-Israel remarks. And as we know, the Israel lobby very much went after him, I believe, AIPAC spent about $15 million. One of the other Jewish groups spent about $1 million. And they went after him with this spending. And it's, these operations, as I learned, are very intricate and very complex. It's not just the negative ads. It's the mailers. It's, phone banking. It's going door to door. So this was, pretty effective, it appears.
Has this opened up other possible progressive members or other Democratic members of Congress to similar types of challenges?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think, obviously this is the first member of the so-called squad who has been eliminated from office. And I think that these groups are really looking at how they can deploy this strategy against other candidates like Cori Bush in Missouri. They're also looking at Ilhan Omar, but I think that's going to be a much more difficult race for them. They're definitely deploying some of these things, and they will be. A lot of these groups are a little bit tight-lipped about what they're going to do next. When I was looking through the FEC records, a lot of times, a lot of the spending really does occur only about 4 to 6 weeks before the races. And that's really when they pour a lot of their money in. So, a lot of that money has not been reflected yet in the record.
So one person who wasn't really affected by all of this in terms of her own primary, but campaigned very hard for Bowman, was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes. AOC safe. She won by a large majority. This is a very, I think her opponent wasn't as established in the community.
Right.
He had at one time
so
thought
about. I don't think Vladimir has ever lost an election before.
No, and also I think her opponent had at one time looked at maybe challenging Bowman, went back and forth. So, and it just wasn't really an effective targeting of her. And I think she's pretty popular in her district. So she, overwhelmingly overcame that challenge. And it's the first challenge she's had since 2020.
So you're writing a piece about the cryptocurrency industry's investment in this election. What are they doing to try to swing some races?
Yeah, they are investing very heavily in a number of races, notably Representative Katie Porter's race in California. I think they spent the most in that race. I think it was $10 million. And what's really interesting is they are looking for these candidates who have expressed, a disapproval of crypto, don't want to work with crypto, and they are pouring millions of dollars into these negative ads. But it's really interesting because a lot of these ads say nothing about cryptocurrency. They go after a lot of these other candidates' vulnerabilities. They also contributed about $2.1 million to Jamaal Bowman's race. Nowhere in their negative ads did they say anything about cryptocurrency. They mostly just talked about the fact that he is against decency. Sure. Their biggest target to date is going to be Sherrod Brown. He is head of a very powerful banking committee. He has expressed a lot of questions and disapproval of the industry overall. So they really do believe this is their next big target, and you can bet they're going to pour in millions of dollars. I mean, they have a lot more to go against him and supporting Bernie Moreno. And as we know, Sherrod Brown is one of the most vulnerable senators up for re-election. So whether this is going to work is an open question, but it certainly can't hurt their thoughts of trying to boost Bernie Moreno.
Mm-hmm. And so finally, Utah Republicans have chosen their potential successor to Senator Mitt Romney.
Yes, they chose Representative Curtis. This has been a really interesting thing to watch because you sort of have this push and pull of the more conservative Republicans versus the moderates. The representative is really more in the mold of a Mitt Romney, someone who is a moderate. He's expressed an interest in climate change.
And he beat a Trump-endorsed
Exactly.
candidate.
That was huge. That was huge. And then also, actually, the candidate he also beat was actually, I think I'm thinking about a different race. Got them all confused. But
they all start to run
together. They all started to get together.
Point.
I think it was mostly the big question was whether there was going to be another senator like Senator Lee, who's very pro-Trump.
Who's been much more aligned with Trump.
Or Romney. And, I think overwhelmingly what we saw in Utah is a lot of the moderates did win, which is not necessarily something that we weren't expecting. Utah voters have been, they definitely are a little bit more in the middle.
You're right. It's a red state, but it's not been a very Trump enthusiastic state.
Yeah. The former president did not perform that well in Utah, and for an overwhelmingly red state, that's a little surprising. And I would say the majority of the Trump-endorsed candidates in the Utah races did not win. I think there's one race still outstanding, District 2, but. And that was the race that was really interesting, where there's a Trump-backed candidate and a Lee-backed candidate, and usually those two are on the same team. So that was an interesting one. But yeah, overwhelmingly Utah has not been extremely pro-Trump, but they are still very Republican.
Thank you, SJ.
Thank you.
You can read Samantha-Jo and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.